Hello everyone. Today's newsletter is 5 things to remember about boundary rights. There is an expression that good fences make good neighbors. One qualification, only when the fence happens to be on the correct boundary line. Here are 5 things to remember when it comes to boundary lines. Number 1, there is a difference between a fence line and a deed line. If you look at a survey, there may be 2 lines displayed, a fence line and a deed line. The deed line is where the boundary line should be, based on the title papers. The fence line shows where the fence is actually located. If the fence is not on the deed line, it will usually require both a lawyer and a surveyor to determine where the boundary line should be, and more important, whether the fence can be moved. Number 2, can you still steal someone's land by possession? This is called adverse possession and is still available today in many parts of Ontario. However, it is getting harder to prove. Since most of the land has already been converted into the land title system, it will now take typically at least 20 years to be able to prove that you have taken your neighbor's land by possession. Sorry, you can't steal land from the government. So if you have fenced in city land or conservation authority land for even 30 years, you can be asked to move the fence back if they find out. Number 3, who owns the tree on the property line? If the tree is on the boundary line, both neighbors own the tree. You cannot remove the tree without the permission of both owners. You can trim the branches or the roots of your neighbor's tree to the property line as long as you do not harm the tree. You can't enter your neighbor's land to do this. Now, if your tree falls and damages your neighbor's property, then your neighbor is responsible for the loss and will have to claim from their own insurance policy. Strange result, but that's the law. Number 4, is there a law that says that there must be a fence on the boundary line? Well, unless you have a swimming pool or your land is backing onto a public highway, there is no law saying you must have a fence. Now, if there are disagreements between neighbors over the type of fence to build or whether a fence needs to be rebuilt, each city has a process to decide this. Some cities send out referees to determine who is right. The reasonable solution is just share the cost of a simple fence. If one neighbor wants a more elaborate fence, let them pay the difference. Number 5, what should you do when an argument erupts over a boundary line? I have seen neighbors come close to physical violence over arguments over boundary lines. I have seen some cases where people just take matters into their own hands, rip up the fence, and then rebuild it on a different line. Although the best answer is to get a new survey and just work it out, that may not always be possible. Make sure you take pictures of where your fence is in advance, so if your neighbor does take it down, you can prove later where the fence should be if the case goes to court. When you understand your boundary rights, you'll be able to get along a lot better with your neighbors. If you have any questions about these or any other matters, please contact me directly toll-free at 1-888-876-5529 or at mark@realestatelawyer.ca.